Welcome back to another episode of the Freely Roaming Podcast with Molly Mish. Today we're going to bring you another interview that we did. So this will be episode 17. There's also going to be a video version of this on our Freely Roaming Podcast YouTube channel. And if you are seeing this on YouTube already, I hope you enjoy this. Our next episode should be a more topic-driven one. Our interview today is with Famagogo. They're friends of ours that we met here in Europe last year. They are Americans that traveled here in Europe for 6 months, but they've been traveling all across North America as well for the last several years. They are Peter, Kathy, and Abby. I wanted to bring you guys a different perspective of how families can travel. Even though they're a family like us, their dynamic is different. They started traveling when their daughter Abby was around 10 or 11 years old, and having the transition from going to a normal school to homeschooling on the road is something that's totally different than our experience. So I hope this one will give you guys some more insight about how this works with a smaller family, with an older child, and also a different transition. Without any further ado, here's the episode. I hope you guys enjoy. Welcome, Peter, Kathy, and Abby. We're happy to have you guys on this episode. I think this is episode 17 or 18. I don't know. I better look because it's embarrassing to have it wrong on your own podcast. So you guys are technically our second interview. We've only started doing interviews with the last one, which was 16, and this one is 17. And with this one, with these series, we want to talk to travelers of all different kinds. And obviously, you guys have been traveling for a long time too. And I think what you guys do is really unique. Do you guys want to just kind of briefly talk about yourselves a little bit, and then we can dive a little deeper afterwards?
Yeah, sure. We're the Holcomb family. Peter, Kathy, and Abby, like you said a second ago.
I got it right.
We sold our house in Boulder, Colorado in 2014 and made a jump into a Winnebago RV for what was going to be a year-long road trip to take Abby when she was 10 to just see a lot of great things, places that Kathy and I have been, but we wanted to expose Abby to that and have the time just to do that as a family. And we got, I don't know, eight months or so in, and we were just loving it. Everything was going great. We thought we would have to come back to Colorado and start our business back. We were trying to maintain it from the road, but we thought we'd come back and do a little rebuilding phase after that year and reestablish in a bricks and sticks kind of house, probably in Buena Vista, which is where we are right now, which is one of our favorite places. But after that year, we realized that, dang, this was too good. Like we felt like we just figured it out, and we'd everything was working so well, and we weren't really ready to quit traveling. So then we told everybody, we're going to do 2 years. We're going to do one more year. We got all these places we want to go. Well, that year rolled around, and we still weren't ready to change anything. We were still a million places we wanted to go. And so at 2 years, we just decided we're going to do this as long as it makes sense. And works for our family, works for our business, and we're enjoying it. And, here we are, we're going on our 7th year, and it's been amazing. And I don't see any end in sight. It's kind of like a new lifestyle, and it's taken us so many great places that, I don't know, we're going to keep playing it out, but it's been wonderful. It's been an amazing journey. So.
Oh, no.
Dang phone.
You make sure mine's on silent.
So now everybody knows you're on an iPhone. All the Android people just left. That is very, very similar to a lot of people's stories, including ours. We didn't think that we were going to do this for more than 6 months even. Just once you get bit by the bug, like and also after enough time on the road, you realize you're never going to see it all. So you're just going to do the best you can. Right. Yeah. So, and I feel like you guys have figured out the formula that works for you, which is what we tell a lot of people is I can't tell you what to do for yourself. You have to figure out your own way to do it because if you try to copy my way and we're not the same people, it's going to be a disaster. So I think this podcast will also help people in seeing how people do it differently. Like, we've talked to people about our story a bunch of times. So, you know, they have an idea if they follow us, you know, Instagram, YouTube, maybe this podcast. But I'd love to hear more just about, like, maybe some of the details. Like, how did you guys figure out at the beginning that that you even wanted to do this? Like, or was there some kind of, like, for us, like you guys, was wanting to take our kid go see places, but, you know, there was also a lot of just right place, right time kind of thing for us too. You know, like, I had been self-employed for a while, and then Marlene's, you know, got pregnant, had the baby, took maternity, and, like, during her maternity, like, her company, like, you know, was kind of going under. So we're like, okay, let's just freelance. So then we both became freelancers, and that was the, like, maybe even the bigger catalyst that said we don't have to stay here and do this. Was there something like that for you? Were you guys already self-employed and able to do it?
Yeah, we owned our own photography business. We specialized in creating extraordinary experiences for people in wild places, and then creating custom decor for the home. And we'd been doing that for 10 years, 12 years. And our business was booming, and we were traveling all the time to go to these amazing locations to shoot in. And then we were traveling all the time for fun. And home was just like this place that was really a pain. We had to go back and take care of it and pay an exorbitant amount for it, and
mow the grass.
Yeah, it was just this
laundry.
Anchor point. Right. And one time when we were coming back from Moab, Utah, after a photo shoot, we were photographing a wedding out there, and we were leaving the next day. It was literally going home, doing the laundry, and then heading out the next day. I was like, man, I wish we could just spend this day playing in Utah, going climbing or biking or whatever. And on that drive home, I was like, you know, we own our own business. We get to set our own terms. Why are we going home to this Anchor? And Peter was like, because we have to. We're responsible adults, and, like, that's what you do.
Yeah, haven't you read the manual about living in America?
Right. Everybody goes home, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So on that drive home, I was like, you know, I think that we can run our business without a home base, without a studio space, without any of that, because we're traveling anyway to shoot, and we could go to our clients' homes and meet with them, and they would probably love that even more. And Peter was like, no, that's preposterous. We're not doing that. But that idea resonated over the next 6 months. And pretty soon we started having conversations like, could we actually do this? And could we still maintain the quality and service that we had always provided? And pretty soon we ran out of excuses of why we had to have this building to be successful and to feel like we were productive. And once those excuses ran out, we were like, this could be amazing, but we're not sure if it's going to work. You know, we don't know anybody that's actually really done this. And that's why we set a year parameter on it. We were like, okay, well, I think we can, like, kind of scrimp and save and just limp our business along for a year, and nothing catastrophic will happen. And then we'll go back and we'll get serious and we'll be adults again. And then after that year, we're like, oh my gosh, we have found the best life ever. Why would we ever go back? And we were able, our business started growing and changing into something that we'd always dreamed it would be, but never imagined was actually possible. And so now here we are, over 7 years later, doing exactly what we wanted to do. And it's been amazing.
That's awesome. I mean, I've got a whole bunch of questions based on what you just said. Like, number one, there's always, like, between me and Marlene too, there's always one person between the couple that has to convince the other one. So it sounds like, Kathy, that was you, right?
Yes.
And Peter, like, what was your moment of saying, okay, I'm going to go with her idea? Like, how did you come around to that?
Well, it was always my dream too, right? It wasn't that I didn't want to do it, or we'd spent a lot of, 3 to 6 months at a time living out of the back of a pickup truck, going all over the West, kayaking and climbing. But once it seems like you're a parent and you get kind of assimilated into that lifestyle, living in the suburbs, having a kid, growing a business, that kind of becomes like your personality and your identity. And still traveled, like a lot for work and play, but I'd spent so much energy building this business and getting it to where I felt like it needed to be and where we were happy with it. It was hard to let that go. Although at the same time, it was kind of the challenge was up. I felt like we'd done that. We were at that point where we're just going through the motions, doing what we'd been doing, maintaining our business and maybe growing it some, but we were over kind of the huge growth cycle of figuring out how to run your own business and do all that. We had it dialed at that point. And so part of the fun of your own business, right, is the figuring it out and the excitement of the chase and making it work. And then once it works for 5 or 6 years or 8 years in our case, it's kind of like, okay, this works now, but it's kind of feeling more like
it's a little boring
a job, less
right.
like a chase and less exciting. Although we were doing exciting work and we had great clients, all that. I don't want to, demean any of that, but the idea of us doing something new and something so different was exciting to me and terrifying, because we'd put so much energy into getting where we were. It was kind of hard to let that go, even though your heart really wanted to try new things and push new boundaries. So when she first suggested that, I was like, gosh, we put all this energy into this. Are we just going to let it go? And how would that work? How can we manage the two of them together? And that was what made me kind of shoot it down at first, was that thought process. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, like I don't want to be here mowing this grass. I don't want to be doing maintenance on this house that I really saw the house as like an anchor, as a place we went back to, as a place I'd come back from this amazing trip. I'd download all my pictures. I'd work on them. And then my mind would just start daydreaming about all the places I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't there. Like that was never my dream, was to be sitting in that house working on this stuff. So then once I kind of thought, well, we can travel, we can still be productive, we can be good parents, we can spend quality time in all these places we love, and maybe do more work that we're really excited about and push our boundaries professionally. It's like, let's try it. What do we got to lose, right? We can always come back. We can always buy another house. Mm-hmm. We can always get another job that feels pretty good, or, maybe not feel so good, but it's stable. And so let's try it. The last thing you want to do is like be on your deathbed, thinking of all the things you didn't do,
Right.
So,
you don't want to be filled with regret.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we'd wanted to do this since our 20s. And I turned 40 the year that no, that's not true. I was 39. And as we were 38 and 39, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking back at my 20s and, we always wanted to live on the road. Why didn't we ever do it then? And so it just felt like it's now or never. Like we've got to just give it a shot and follow this dream and see what happens. And honestly, we became better parents, better business people, more creative. And that's what we learned that first year. It was like, oh, wow, like there's so much more. And that discovery process was really just pivotal and profoundly changing.
I hear a lot of people say, I want to go travel once my kids are out of the nest. And I think it's like, man, you better go before your kids are out of the nest, because that's like primo time to spend with them and to really shape them and show them all the stuff that you obviously feel is important enough to do once they're out of the nest and you have your time. Why wouldn't you share that amazing experience with them too?
Yeah, I mean, we hear that too, and I think those people's kids are getting ripped off.
Yeah.
It's completely unfair for them to say, no, we're going to go do this super fun thing, but only when you're gone.
Exactly.
It's not cool.
Yeah.
Best
Like,
of all
hurry
that.
up, hurry
Yeah.
up.
Can you be gone already so we can go do some fun stuff?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think people think about it that way. They think about like what you're saying, which is you hear from people all the time is, oh, that's not the responsible thing. The responsible thing is to, stick around, send them to school, do SAT tutor and have them go take piano lessons and stuff like that. But as far as like your business pivot goes, like usually when people do a pivot of their business, it's like something's not working out, so they gotta try something new. But for you guys, it sounds like things were working really well, and I can see why that was a risk that you felt in your mind, that why pivot when we got something good going. But sounds like in the long run it's worked out even better. Now you can have both of the things that you love, which is starting running your business and travel. So I think that's really good lesson for people to think about. It's like change isn't good or bad. Change is just change. What comes of it is totally up to you. And with that, I see Abby nodding her head a lot with this. So obviously, like, we have 3 kids, but I think her experience is totally different than our kids, as in she had this pre-travel memory of all, living in Boulder and doing all that with her friends and going to school. And then being on the road looks like it suits her really well too. So what about your perspective, Abby? What do you think?
Yeah, so when I look back at life in Boulder, I don't really remember much because it's a long time ago now. I just remember zipping around every weekend, like my parents said, and I feel like I grew up in Moab because we were always in Moab and we were always in the desert doing stuff like that. So I don't really remember Boulder life that much. But I love traveling. I love meeting all the new people, and I'm a whitewater kayaker and competitively, and so it's been so amazing for me to be able to travel all around the world, some of the best rivers ever. And I don't know, I love traveling so much.
Was it a hard transition for you? I'm guessing you were in public school before to homeschool?
I mean, I think that question, for all of you too, because you guys had the transition as well in this process. But maybe how was it for you to transition, Abby?
I don't think it was that hard for me to transition. Again, it was a long time ago, but they gave me a phone so I could keep in touch with my friends when we left. And so I was able to call my friends in Boulder. But what I found is I had my little core group of friends in Boulder, and then that quickly morphed into friends all across the country that we got to hang out with and travel to. I'm sure you guys are the same way. And school was probably the hardest part. We really struggled to find a program that worked for us. I was always doing online school. And we started with Colorado Connections Academy, and that didn't work. And then Keystone and Laurel Springs, and I don't know, so many school programs. So that was probably the hardest shift, was finding a good program for us. But yeah.
Yeah, school was one of our biggest hang-ups whenever we were planning this big change. I'm actually a teacher by profession before we did photography.
Oh, so you do know what you're talking about. You do know what you're doing, actually. We're the I just
imposters.
assume that, everybody we know with kids that travel don't know what they're doing to begin with. So not the case for you.
I'm excellent at middle school science, but I don't know anything about 6th grade reading or social
Yeah,
studies
right.
or any of that.
Right.
What I mainly knew is that I didn't know enough to teach her everything that she needs to know. And so we did a variety of online options, and it's been a really interesting progression, because we started out and we're like, we have to do an accredited school, and she has to have a structured day, and she needs to have teachers, and all of these things. And we held really tightly to that. And so we tried one program where she had to log on all day long at school, which kind of defeated the point of traveling when she was just staring at a screen all day long. And we're like, okay, that's not going to work. And then the next program that we tried was a really core knowledge. She could work through it as quickly as she could or wanted to, and then we could get on with the good stuff. And then we started thinking, that's funny that school is the thing that's holding us back from getting on with the good learning and the good life and all of that. And kind of the clincher was when we were sitting in Spain last summer, and Abby was reading a textbook on Spanish in the condo. I'm like, come on, let's go do something. And she's like, no, I've got to study Spanish. And I'm like, we're in Spain. Like, go outside and talk to somebody. Let's go get to know people. What are we doing? And so that was a really pivotal insight, that this thing that we had held as this standard of accreditation and these things that we had known might not be all that we thought they were. And after that moment, we shifted into maybe she doesn't have to have a high school diploma from an accredited school. Maybe all of these experiences, exploring the world and learning from all different kinds of people and studying things that she's passionately interested in, maybe that's where the power and the magic and the beauty of education is, and giving her that hunger for learning things that she's really passionate about. Maybe that's more important. So we're in a shift right now. Once again, we've kind of chronically been in a shift. And
I mean, I totally agree. That is how we look at it too, but we didn't have that transition period, like I said earlier. Now, do you think by being a teacher and having that structured methodology that you've always dealt with every student that you've ever had, do you think that was maybe the root of why you held on to that for so long? Do you think maybe in that sense, like it maybe had caused these problems for you to figure out, the way that you wanted to do it?
Absolutely. I mean, my whole graduate education was that indoctrination, that school, this is the best way to teach kids. This is giving them exactly what they need to be successful. And, when we started 7 years ago, it was a very different time than it is right now. I mean, many kids are learning online right now and struggling through this whole thing. And I think that the entire education system has shifted a little bit in that 7 years. So I think it's changing systemically. I think it's changing in my mind. I think it's changing around the world as what's really important to make kids successful in the future. It may be college, it may not be college, but everything that's in the education system is designed to get kids ready for college, which may or may not be what they need to be successful contributing adults. So these are lots of conversations that we're having right now. We don't have an answer, but we're definitely talking and thinking and wondering and planning and all of that.
And certainly, depending on which country you're from, that makes a difference too, because if you have to go into $100,000 worth of debt to get an undergrad degree that may not get you a job that pays more than $40,000 a year, that is a huge reason to go into a different type of learning experience. Maybe you go into the trades, maybe you go into something very specific that will more prepare you. But then again, like, that's not necessarily the perfect answer for every student too, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Definitely didn't know in high school, and for sure didn't know for the first couple years of college. But it takes kind of college for some people to figure out what that is. So if you thrust them into like a trade, maybe they won't like it. But for compare it to going into a bunch of debt, that's something that I think that's, for the U.S. anyways, it's a major factor. That's why we're also looking at having dual citizenship in Europe. Gives us some options where they can get almost a free education here. But we don't know. Hopefully we don't have to think about that for a couple more years. But at some point that's going to come into the picture. But to go back to what you're saying about all these kids that are doing remote schooling right now in the U.S., and talking to a lot of our friends that are doing that, to me, it seems like there's a lot of the, like you said, these old structure methodology being applied to remote schooling that is causing a lot of troubles for people. It's like a lot of kids are just staring at a screen where their Zoom meeting is for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. And that is not what they want to do. That's not the same experience that they've always had going to school. and these teachers that are creating these curriculums, and they want to keep their students busy, so they're probably giving them a lot of extra work to do just to keep them busy. And that's also just making the whole process, like, bogs down the whole process. So now the parents feel obligated to keep pushing these kids. So it's boring for the kids, it's hard for the teachers, and it's not making it easier for the parents. So I've been telling our friends, like, hey, look, like, we've been doing this with our kids for their entire school career. So, you guys are essentially doing this, but really I think what needs to happen is that the schools need to give parents the option to either obviously do what the school provides, which is remote learning, and the parents can go to work or work from home or whatever. But if there is a stay-at-home parent that is willing to do some of the teaching themselves, I think there should be an option, which is how we started homeschooling, is have a teacher there be just somebody who holds the parent's hand, who does the teaching, and have somebody to say, hey, am I doing this right? Rather than having the teacher teach the kids directly, the parents can teach, and using the teachers from the school as a resource. So that's kind of what got us into homeschooling. Like, we didn't know how to homeschool at the beginning, and for so long it was like, when the kids go to school, we're done. It's like when Ava went to kindergarten, first grade, it was 5 years into our travels. It was like, hey, 5 years is a long time, we're good with that. Yeah. But now it's like, once we got our first homeschool experience was going into a open house of a homeschool charter program at a public school system in the county that we used to live in. And that's exactly what they did for us. They gave us curriculum, they gave us a budget to buy some school supplies, and then we did the teaching, and then the teacher met with Ava every 20 school days. And that gave us some confidence to be able to do this. To say, hey, look, we're making sure that they're learning the right things, and then every 4 weeks she can talk to the teacher to make sure that we didn't screw her up.
That's great.
Yeah,
it's a good system.
Yeah.
So then, but for us, after a while, it with more kids and the changes, so I'm sure, like, the process you're going through, which is, what we've experienced too, is like, let's use the traveling, let's use these places that we go to as the primary method, and then have the traditional thing supplement that.
Exactly. Yeah. Take advantage of the amazing things around you, and
also
make sure they get what they need too.
Right, exactly. I think that's the part where scares a lot of parents, to think that, are they getting the things they need? That's not part of traveling.
Yeah.
So between you guys, do you do most of the schooling, since that's your trade, that's your profession, Kathy, or do you guys both do it?
Or is she independent?
Yeah. How hands off is Abby? Like, is she pretty easygoing? She pretty. Is there a lot of yelling going on? So I finish her school, or we can't go kayaking?
Sometimes, yeah.
She's a super independent kid, and we had that structure in place when we first started. And we learned the first year on the road that I was not the right person to teach Abby. I was way better in a mom role than a mom teacher role. That just wasn't a good fit for us. And so we have advisors that help her. So we have, I have tons of friends that are teachers from when I was in the classroom. And so we rely on them to kind of just help keep her on track. And of course we check in, but she's an independent, self-motivated kid. So it's awesome. Been, I think, pretty easy for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah, we have heard that too, about being the mom / teacher, especially if you only have one child, because when there's nobody around, like, you're the person they have to hang out with. And if you're the teacher, they have to tell her to do something, and then the next moment she has to hang out with you. It's like, hey, who are you? Are you my friend? Or are you my teacher?
Exactly. It just wasn't a good balance for us. But some people do it so beautifully, but it wasn't a good fit for us.
So when you guys left for that first year, did you keep your house as a just in case type situation?
We really debated that, and the thing is, we probably, it would have been a great financial investment because our house, we've looked it up and it's gone like through the roof.
Oh, I'm sure. It's in Boulder, right?
Yeah.
So it's gone up like crazy.
But we saw that as kind of like, if something really catastrophic happened to the house, it could bring us back from the trip and force us to stop before we were ready. You know, if like the roof blew off of it or something, and then we'd have to sell our RV, buy a roof for a house that we didn't even like. So we thought about that a lot, and a lot of people advised us to hang on to it, and maybe that would have been a great decision, but it's hard to say. So we just decided we wanted to cut ties with the house, and so we sold it, and that was part of the stress maybe of the whole transition. Was our house sold in 2.5 hours from when it went on the market. We had an open house like on a Saturday morning, and 2.5 hours later we had our first offer, which we accepted, and it was for more than our asking price. I mean, it was like a great offer. We bought that house at a really great time to buy, and we sold it at a really great time to sell it. So we did really well on that. Probably would have done better if 7 years later now we still own the house, right?
Yeah.
But who knows what happened in there, and we just didn't want the financial instability of not knowing if we rented it, what was going to happen to it and all that. So we sold it. And
but I also think that it was a safety net. To hold on to that house would have been to say that, we can always come back. It's like an easy reason to stop.
Give you an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so who knows if we would have even made it a year, if it would have been like, oh, it's easier just to come home. It would be more comfortable. It would be simpler, all of that. And then we would have...
Not if the roof blew off, but yeah, it'd be easy to...
Right. Right. So I think there's a lot of power in fully committing and jumping all the way in, committed to figuring out how to make it work. And if you're only part way in and part way out, you don't have that same power and motivation driving you to succeed. So I think that it was a great decision overall. If you take in all the factors, I think it was probably the best thing that has kept us and driven us to do what we've done.
Do you guys still keep like a storage shed or anything, or did you get rid of everything?
Storage shed.
Yeah.
Because this trip was supposed to be 1 year, right? And we were going to come back, we were going to buy another house, and then we were going to move all of our stuff back into this new house. So, I mean, we obviously had a bunch of garage sales and got rid of a bunch of stuff before we hit the road, but we kept all the important stuff. And at this point, I have no idea what our important stuff is. I mean, I know there's a couple of things in the front of the unit where we go there twice, maybe 3 times a year, and we'll switch out like summer clothes for winter clothes, and we make some adjustments of stuff we can't haul around with us on a certain leg. But all that stuff in the middle, I have no idea what's there, and it just needs to go. But then it's like, we take a couple of weeks or a month. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take us to go through all that. And
a couple of weeks is optimistic.
Yeah.
But then we're also paying this stuff that we don't even care about.
Yeah.
So that's been something we've talked about a lot lately is what are we going to do with this? This isn't really sustainable, but we don't have a great answer for it.
Well, I don't know if
we do. We have
I don't know if it makes you
stuff to kill.
I don't know if it makes you feel better, but we have like a 6x8 or 6x9 or something that prices just keep going up every year. And I get an email with the bill every month.
Yeah.
Yep. And
so,
at some that tipping point will come where it's not worth. I mean, I think we've probably spent $15,000 to keep all of our stuff that we don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And at some point, that tipping point will come where it's another anchor, and we're like, let it go. It's just not worth hanging on to. But the work of making that change happen hasn't been worth it yet.
Right. Right. Yeah, you need a lot of momentum to push through that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be awful.
Yeah, you know,
that's like our least favorite place to visit is our storage unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
when we
for
roll
sure.
into there, it's always like,
Yeah.
like I need that one thing that's in there, and I need, whatever it is, and then I'm like, oh, it's gonna be terrible. We're gonna be here for 2 hours. We got to unload half the stuff in the front to get to that one thing, and
Yeah. Well, how many kayaks and paddle boards do you have to move out of the way to get to the back?
We try to keep those with us. 20, 25 kayaks and boards. That's essential that stays with us.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. So, I mean, I think that's
already straight.
fairly typical of people that do this, especially families. I think it's maybe easier. I don't want to say for sure, but in my mind, it's easier for like a single guy or a couple to just walk away from it because, they don't have these. I'm sure there's like boxes of pictures of Abby when she was a baby that you don't want to carry around, but you don't want to get rid of.
Clothes or artwork.
Baby clothes, toys, stuff like that,
As soon as you see it, it's like, oh, I can't get rid of it, even though you forgot about it. It's like,
You're like, 20 years from now, you'll be so glad you kept it. And all the $15,000 that you've been paying is going to be all worth it.
Yeah.
Worth every penny.
Yeah, all that fingerprint artwork.
Yeah, the little footprint from the hospital that they make on the clay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Totally.
So don't feel bad about that because we got that
We're on
too.
the same boat.
Yeah. We did downsize.
6x9.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Well-
We started with a bigger one and we had to downsize.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, it wasn't.
our hand was forced.
Yeah.
Our hand was forced because somebody had broken into ours and stole a bunch of valuable stuff.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So
And it's like, well, we don't need the space anymore.
right,
It's
it's like,
downsize.
a lot of stuff was broken, stolen. So we're like, okay, let's just salvage what's left that we want to keep,
Yeah.
and just get rid of the others. So then we were able to downsize. So and then we got a small insurance settlement from it. So it was a bad experience at the time, but I think in retrospect, it probably pushed us in the direction that we should have been going. But I'm not saying that should happen to you. It shouldn't happen to anybody.
Blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
that's what they
guys
say.
switched from an Airstream to a truck camper to the van.
Mm-hmm.
You must have experienced some growing pains there. Just going from an Airstream to something smaller.
Well,
It's kind of like moving out of your house again. in some
Right.
ways.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but for us, going to the Airstream was a very liberating experience, downsizing from the house. It's like now everything's within relatively close arm's reach. So I know where everybody is. I know where everything is. I can just get to it really quick. So it's like, I felt very comfortable with the downsize. And then after 7 years in the Airstream felt like an apartment size-wise to us. So then it was like, okay, this is too big now. It's not taking it to places we wanted to go. So then when we downsized to the truck camper, like you said, we had that same feeling. Like it was like the first time going from a house to a trailer. So you guys have a similar experience too, right? When you go from the house to the first Winnebago and then the second Winnebago, or the Revel was your second one? Did you guys go from a big one?
We're on our fourth Winnebago right now. But,
Right. Well,
Yeah,
now you're dual wielding Winnebagos.
yeah. We had two views, which were kind of a Class C with a slide, but it's still built on a Sprinter chassis.
Felt like an apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's much like what you described with the Airstream. And then we went to a Revel, and now we're on our second Revel. So, so we've switched 4 times, but we've really only gone through that transition of like, oh no, what are we going to do? Twice.
Mm-hmm.
So from the house to the view and now to the Revel.
Yeah, for us,
It is. It's a little bit of something to figure out, right?
Right.
I mean,
for us, it was more about less so much the size that mattered. It was more the layout. What we've come to realize is that layout means everything. Because, there's dudes living in Honda Elements that are totally thrilled.
Yeah.
So I think they have the right layout. And I think our layout, even though the van is much smaller than the Airstream, it's a much better layout, much better fit for us, even though our kids are more numerous and bigger.
Yeah.
How's your layout how's the layout in the new Revel?
It's good. So the first Revel had a second bed that came from Winnebago with it, and that was one of the so of everything about this Revel except where's Abby going to sleep? And
which is an important question.
Is important, right? So we're in the process right now. That's been kind of something nice being in Colorado. We've had a little more room to spread out, and but we're in the process of designing and building a really cool new bed system that we're excited about. It's not done yet, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have that ironed out. But in Europe last year, we were in the other Revel and it had the bed, and that worked pretty good. Although from the time we first built the bed to when we came back, Abby had grown enough that she was touching on both ends at that point.
Oh,
and
she was sleeping east to west, huh?
Yeah. So she's like, yeah, this bed isn't as good as like I remember it. It's kind of getting worse. And, so that was kind of something we knew we were going to have to overcome in a different way.
Yeah.
But once we got back in North America, part of our agreement with traveling in the Revel, which is really small for a family of three, especially with our 70-pound Labrador Retriever that hangs out with us most of the time, is we thought, well, we'll try something that we never dreamed we'd try, and we're going to get a towable, and we're going to pull a small towable trailer camper behind, and then that'll kind of end up being living space and give Abby more of like Abby's room.
Mm-hmm.
And so cool. She's got pretty much half of the towable when we're in the States. Mm-hmm. And then, if we want to go somewhere more adventurous, we can still all just park the trailer and take off in the Revel. And then when we go back to Europe, we'll just leave the trailer here and we'll go just in the Revel. So, it's been a compromise. We were definitely more comfortable in our old view as far as just being parked somewhere and feeling like we had plenty of room and space. But the Revel has afforded us to go to Europe and to go to these really far-flung, hard to get to spots that we were always bumming rides when we were in our RV and trying to go with other people, and especially our kayaking. There's a lot of places to get to rivers that are down really rough dirt roads, and there was just never an option for us to take the view there. We tried a few times and we really regretted it, so we learned the hard way. But
yeah,
the Revel's been a really good compromise, but it's also got its own challenges too. So, and I think that's how this life is, right? There's not one vehicle that works perfect for everything.
Right.
It's just kind of the season you're in and what type of travel you want to do, and hopefully you can figure out the vehicle side of it that'll support that best.
Did you guys consider?
Always a compromise.
Did you guys consider towing like a Jeep or something behind the view for those kinds of things?
We did, but in the view we had this utility trailer, this closed cargo trailer.
Okay, so you already towed something.
And that's where literally we would bring 24 kayaks or paddleboards would be in the trailer. And so we had a motorcycle in there and climbing gear and bicycles, we called it the garage, and we really treated it like you would have a garage at home. It was like all that kind of stuff went in the garage, and it worked really well. But maybe someday we'll do a Class C with a Jeep or something behind it that will allow us to still go to those remote places, but then we'll be able to carry less kayaks. So I don't know, it's a compromise.
Yeah, we went through, we did a year after we got the truck camper, and we did a year towing a small trailer behind too, which in North America, like what you guys are doing now, is perfect. You don't really have issues with driving through small cities and narrow roads as much, especially out west. But what we found, though, is, at least for us, when we got the little 17-foot casita that we towed behind, the casita became our home. Then we didn't live in the truck camper anymore. And we really did it. Yeah, so we just did it because I was still working full-time remotely. So I just had it so I can have an office. I guess it's kind of like Abby having her hangout room back in the trailer right now. So yeah. Is the current setup before you have the second bed built in the Revel is Abby, are you just sleeping by yourself in the trailer?
Yeah, I'll sleep in the trailer. Sometimes, like, if Dad goes somewhere to photograph or something, Mom and I can sleep in there because there's 2 bunk beds. Yeah. And so that works. And we were cooking in there because, you know, a bigger kitchen and
Yeah.
a table at all where we could all eat dinner together and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's a great hangout
Yeah.
space.
Cool.
Gets
I think
a lot
that's
more
kind of how we ended up being in the casita full time, which
There's
is
less work.
like we didn't want to have like a whole separate set of kitchen cooking ware and plates and bowls, and taking it back and forth was not worth it, you know. So, and also having the truck always ready to go somewhere without the trailer, so you didn't have to like drop the top and put things away. You can just hop in and go. That was always nice too. But then I do think then you get to the point where you're like, you know, like, why do we have that thing if we're just driving the truck around? And the other trouble that we ran into, I don't know if this happened to you guys yet, you know, whenever we would stay at like a campground, even a county campground or a state park even, they'll want to charge us for 2 campsites because we have 2 camping units.
Oh.
You know, like,
We haven't run into that much.
Yeah. It only happened in Southern
We do a lot of
California.
boondocking, though.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
you know, some places don't care at all. You know, I mean, I think boondocking obviously doesn't matter, but places that we have come across that it made no sense. There are 2 places specifically in California that did it, and they compromised at one place is, okay, if you don't pop up the top on your truck camper, then we'll let you keep it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what is the point, you know? So I'm glad that hasn't happened to you guys yet.
I think it's California
Okay,
problems.
we'll be on the lookout.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, now that there's twice as many people out, you know, tooling around with RVs.
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Maybe all the sites are full, so they'll just let us stay in one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like in Washington, like we would even share a site with a friend.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, California. Them and all their rules.
Yeah.
We can say that. It's our home state.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a
Love
love-hate
California.
relationship. Like all healthy ones, there should be a little bit of hate with a lot of love.
That's right. A little tension adds
Yeah.
to the
Right.
adds to the experience.
If I'm just so blindly 100% in love, then I'm falling into some kind of cult personality spell.
You're missing something, right?
Right.
I think
I'm not seeing all the faults. Right. There's got to be something there. So, I mean, for the people that don't follow you guys, they've noticed that we talked a lot about Winnebago. Do you want to talk to us about the relationship and how that kind of spawned and how that's working?
Yeah. So when we're shopping, I mean, originally we were going to do a DIY Sprinter van build for this 1 year. You know, that's what we were going to do. And I was talking to my dad, and he's like, you know, it's going to be a lot of work, and you're going to have to take a lot of time to do it. And he's like, why don't you just go look at RVs? I was like, I don't want an RV. You know, they're big, they're clunky, they won't go the places I want to go. They guzzle a lot of gas. You know, it's just not what I was after. And so then he kind of kept on me, and then finally I was like, okay, I'll go look. We'll go to this deal this weekend. We'll just poke around, and I'm sure I'm not going to like anything. But we went in there anyway, and we looked at all these, you know, big Class C's and A's, and I was like, yeah, that's not going to go where we want to go. And the salesman finally, he's like, well, we got this one thing. It's kind of weird, but you guys might like it. And, he's like, it's called a Winnebago View, and it's built on this funny German Sprinter van chassis. And
Yeah, it's a company
really
called
funny.
Mercedes. Maybe you've heard of it.
Yeah. And he's like, but look at it. And he's like, really, the Winnebagos are built better than anything. You know, the plumbing's all on the inside, and it's built to handle the cold, and you guys might like it. And so we walked over, and it was a used one, and we walked in, and it felt like a little like Japanese apartment. It was like everything was just tight and compact, but it had all this cool little storage, and the cabinetry was beautiful. It was all flush with these cool little push-button knobs, and it just looked awesome. And I was like, at least I said maybe. It wasn't like an absolutely not. And so I was like, well, can we drive this? And he's like, yeah, sure. So we took it out and drove it. And before I even got on the highway with it, I was like, this drives like a minivan, and in a good way. It didn't feel so big and cumbersome. And I was like, yeah, this might have changed my mind on everything, because when we park and it had a slide, you pop the slide out, it had a lot of room, and it wasn't going to go all the places that what I envisioned with just a straight Sprinter van would, but it was going to certainly offer a lot of mobility with a lot of comfort. And so we walked away from that, and I think Kathy and I both were like, wow, yeah, let's look for one of those. Let's see what we can find one of those for. And, we were on a pretty tight budget.
And then our house sold in 2.5 hours, and we had 20 days to figure it out. And we're like, how are we going to build our own van out in 20 days, right?
Yeah.
So I started getting on RV Trader and calling around all over the country. And I found one in Texas, and it said it was beautiful. And, it's all the salesman stuff they tell you. And sure enough, I flew to Dallas, got to the dealer, and it was awesome. It was 6 years old, but it looked like it'd been kept in a garage every night. It's in great shape. It only had, I think, 24,000 miles on it. And so I was like, we'll take it. And I drove that thing home, and literally by the time I got home, we had like a week and a half before we had to be out of our house. And it might not have been that. It might have been like 4 or 5 days.
I think it was like a couple of days.
And so we made that transition really quick, and that worked really well. So back to your story of how we met Winnebago is, so now we own this Winnebago, and we kind of came into it very organically, which is a big part of, I think, having success with any brand is having a natural, organic relationship with their product. And so part of me being a commercial photographer, we were at the Outdoor Retailer trade show in Salt Lake City that year. And we're going around and we're talking to all these different brands that I was hopefully going to do work for, and some that I already was. And we look in the little show catalog, and it says, Winnebago Industries has a booth. I'm like, could that be the same Winnebago? Like, we just bought this Winnebago. Like, well, we should just go by and tell them, how much we're liking it. And I wasn't even thinking this would be a relationship or a business thing or any kind of arrangement. I just wanted to just tell them how much we've been enjoying it.
We wanted to tell them how much it had changed our life, because we had been living in it for almost 2 months at that point. And so we walked into their booth and plunked down, all three of us, and like, you aren't going to believe this. We just sold our house and moved into a Winnebago, and it's the best thing we ever did. And we're just telling all these stories. And the lady that was there was like, wait a minute, you guys are living as a family in a Winnebago? And
like, yeah. And she's like, well, we just started this blog called Winnebago Life, and they're looking for contributors. And you guys, if you do photography, and can you write? And Kathy's like, well, yeah, I
used to.
I write emails, and
I label my groceries in the cabinet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, I want to get your information, and we're going to have our editor might be interested in talking to you guys. I'm like, oh, great. So we just kind of left and whatever. And then we get this call. And the editor calls us, and we talk for just 20 minutes and tell him what we're doing. And he's like, okay, this is great. Like, we're starting this new blog. It's not up yet, but we're looking for people. And I think you guys have a great story, and we'd love for you just to share your experiences. And we're like, okay, cool. And I was like, well, we're crossing the border to Canada tomorrow. We're not going to have cell service for a while. But in 2-3 weeks, let's talk again. And he's like, that's great. So, rolls around, we have a few little emails back and forth, and we at that point had crossed back into the States, and we just got done kayaking around the Statue of Liberty in New York, and we knew we had this meeting, and we were doing photography for Jackson Kayak, who's another company that we work for, and we were shooting these kayaks in this adventure that we were doing around the Statue of Liberty, and we're like, oh man, we got this meeting, it's like 45 minutes, so we jump out and we throw our boats over by the RV. We go to a picnic table, we set up our computer much like we are right now, and we've got the Statue of Liberty over our shoulder, but we're still like wet, and we just come out of the salt water. And this editor, Don, pops on the screen of the Skype call, and we're talking, and he's like, is that the Statue of Liberty over your shoulder? We're like, yeah, we just got done kayaking around it. And he's like, oh my God, you guys are great. Like,
You're perfect.
like you're hired. So we basically landed this job as the first contributors to Winnebago Life. And, that consisted of, writing a handful of articles a year and not really any pay or anything, but it was just like cool to connect with the brand. And then that turned into, me over months and really years of starting to do more of their lifestyle photography around all their vehicles. And now when they have a new vehicle, we, like the Revel, before the Revel was actually launched, we picked up 2 of them in Denver, and they said Joe's Guide Service on the side of it in these magnetic signs that covered up where it said Revel, because it was like top secret that the Revel was even going to
Yeah.
RV companies had built like mainstream RV companies had built a van out on a 4x4 Sprinter chassis. So this was kind of a big departure. And so we brought it out here, and we were in Colorado and over in Moab, and we shot it for 2 weeks and made these videos and stuff. And that became the Revel launch video that then, the Revel's, I think, pretty safe to say it's their most successful model they've ever had. And so we've gone on to then growing kind of what we do for them. And now, so we're brand ambassadors, we're photographers, we give them feedback on products. We'll go test things before they're out and give them feedback. We wear a lot of hats with Winnebago, but it's been an amazing relationship. And it's one of those ones where we never would have even had our foot in the door if we hadn't bought that first Winnebago on our own. Because they really don't like, they get hit up all the time. Somebody, give me a free RV. I'm going to do this great social media campaign. Mm-hmm. And they're always like, no, we want real people who have kind of put their money into owning their product for the reasons that they want people to own their product. And then if you have the skills, then, maybe you can build something from there. But it's been amazing for us. And it has opened up a lot of other doors. Now we work with Mercedes, and I know you guys too. And it's been wonderful. And, these are the type of things that if I was still sitting in my house in Boulder, I would have never had these opportunities. But you've got to kind of take that first step off the cliff, see what's going to happen. And I can almost guarantee no matter what you do, something good's going to happen out of it if you try and you're positive about it,
And I think it's also how you look at it, right? Because I think a lot of people can have the exact same experience and talk about all the negative stuff. So I really think that how you perceive your situation has a lot to do with it. And going back with the whole Winnebago thing, I do really think that Winnebago is one of the RV companies that really listen to their customers the best. I think we talked about this last year at Caravan Salon too, when they were there, because when you look at the Revel line, that it was the first major manufacturer doing a vehicle like that, but not in Europe, right? People in Europe have been doing this forever. So they're really just tapping into something that already exists, but hasn't really blossomed yet in the U.S. And then they ran with it. Like having owned Airstreams for a long time, like I think Airstream and Winnebago are 2 of these like iconic RV brands that have been in the U.S. for a long time. And I think Airstream has been writing on their brand purely, just the recognition, the shape, the materials that is used to build these, just writing on that as their, formula to success. Whereas Winnebago, I think they've really tried really hard to build the right products that make sense for people. So I feel like I have really positive things about Winnebago in my mind, but even though I've never owned one, because I think when we came to this, because that's how we came across Airstreams, is like we knew we didn't want a Class C because all the negative connotation you think of them, like they're plastic, they're made of like wood, or they have giant swoosh stickers on the side, and all the stuff like that. Like we wanted to live the no swoosh life, So I think that's how we got into Airstreams, but we didn't get into like Sprinter vans until much later. And I think by the time we got into Sprinter vans, there's just no company out there building a Sprinter van for 5 people. You have to build it yourself. I also don't think that like it's the right market for somebody like Winnebago to go into. If they built a Revel for 5 people, they would sell very few of them. So even for you guys, right? Because you have to kind of engineer the second bed for even just the family of 3.
Yeah, well, Winnebago will listen to people, and if this is kind of, guess what really impressed me the most when I first was getting to know them, is they had a change that a lot of people said, hey, what about this? And it wasn't like something was broken. It was just like, this could be better. And they actually made a change like mid-model year. They just like decided in the assembly line, we're stopping it here. Everyone made from here on it's going to change. Not because we're going to promote it as a new selling feature in the next year model. It's just like, this is just better. And so if they can do things like that, they'll just start improving on something, which is great. I mean, you obviously see that in the next model year when they make a big jump. But I was really impressed that they would just change mid-run. And they are always listening. They're going to RV shows. They're going to rallies. They're out and about using the products and talking to owners. And they're watching the forums and all that too. And they're taking notes. And, some things that people request just don't make any sense. But other things, maybe make a lot of sense. And they're going to make those changes. And, you mentioned the having a van that sleeps more than for a couple. Almost all the American vans are set up for couples, and it's usually their demographic is a retired couple. Like, kids are gone and now they're going to travel. Well, we're kind of we're proving that's not the case always, and that it has its benefits. Winnebago has made this new van called the Solus, and it's got a bed in the back and a pop top, and it'll sleep 4, so it might be a little tight for you guys. But they are thinking like, man, there could be families that want to travel in a small van and not be in a big RV. And that van's actually selling really great right now. So it's on the Dodge Pro.
Like even last year at Caravan Salon, you could tell, and I think they must have noticed it too when they were there, is the high top pop tops were a new thing that happened last year.
Yeah.
So I think,
attention.
Yeah, so they are paying attention and they're taking notes. They're listening to people. So I think that sounds like a great partnership you guys have with them.
Yeah,
we love it. Yeah.
It was really educational to go to the Caravan Salon last year. Where we first kind of met you guys. I mean, we knew you guys online before then for sure, but it was great to get to talk to you a little bit and hang out at the Dometic booth.
Yeah, it was a interesting experience for us too. I mean, great experience to meet you guys, even though it was very brief. But great experience for us. But everything just feels like a blur now because it was so.
There's a lot of talking.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was fun.
We should.
Yeah.
I was amazed at that show how many bunk beds I saw in vans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys did that, and I'm like, oh man, like every corner I'd walk around, there was either a pop top or bunk beds. And I was like,
we definitely.
This is great. I hope the American designers are paying attention to this. I know Winnebago is, but wouldn't it be great if all the other brands jumped on that bandwagon and there's just more choices for families to get out there and travel?
Well, I think a lot of them are realizing that people want to go smaller, because there's obviously have been bunk beds in trailers and Class C's and even the B pluses sometimes, but still anything like Class B plus and below, they think it's too small. But like I said earlier, is that it's about the layout, right? So there are layouts that will work, and even in Caravan Salon, European vans are the majority of all the RVs, and it hasn't been the case in the U.S. in the past, but I think all the vans are just they're catching up. I think pretty soon, if not already happened, there are going to be more vans than other types of RVs. So they're going to have to figure that out. And I think it's smart for Winnebagos to do that, to go there and learn what the Europeans are doing. But what you were saying, like there were a lot of family oriented vans in Caravan Salon, but we only saw one that was made for 5, and it was built kind of weak. It wouldn't. I think the way that it was constructed, it would not have survived the way we use it.
Yeah, not on the dirt roads.
Well, there's something to be said for if you want it done right, do it yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And that's actually, pretty apropos for this last week that we've been through, having to figure out how to fix our suspension and trying to find somebody to weld our cracked frame and everything. So like we can't get people to do it, and also on the other hand is like if people don't want to do it and we make them do it, like are they going to do a good job?
Yeah.
It's not their van, so why do they care? So we ended up having to jump through some hoops. So we got it done, and now we're happy to be back in the van.
Yeah.
Good.
Yay!
So where do you guys? I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Where do you guys about your next travel plans? You have this new Revel, and where do you guys see yourself? I know everything's shut down and nobody's
post-pandemic.
Post-pandemic, where do you guys
we have to assume
see yourselves?
Oh, well, we have the immediate plan, and then we have post-pandemic plans.
Okay. So you have immediate plans. That's better than us.
They keep changing by the week.
We've had a lot of plans, though.
Yeah.
We
last
might be
6
on
months.
Plan U or Y, something like that at this point. But for the immediate future, we're planning to head west. So we're gonna go to the West Coast. We're gonna get some
surfing in.
Yeah, get some work done on our Revel to make it ready for the next longer term plan. And then just kind of explore the desert Southwest. And then after the holidays, we are going to go east. Abby has some training for the upcoming Kayak World Championships that are next July. So we'll be pretty focused on that starting after Christmas and taking her to rivers and where she can practice and train. And then the big picture is we're hoping to head back to Europe and explore that. And then this time we're going to plan at least a year. We realized 6 months wasn't even the tip of the iceberg last time. So we want to come back and do a lot of things that we missed out on last time. And then who knows what's next? Africa, South America, Australia, New Zealand, abroad. So we'll see how the world shapes up and what we're able to do and what we're not.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's exciting.
I feel like we'll be here for another 2 years, possibly more, because by the time we get there, there'll be like a 5th year will allow me to get permanent residency. So there's a chance we'll be here for 3 years. So we really are looking forward to seeing you guys come back and do some traveling with you guys.
Yeah, spend some more time together.
Great.
We can't wait.
You guys definitely inspired us to go to Europe. We kind of had the thought, but then we like, whoa, they're already going there.
They're
like,
doing it.
how's this working? And then it was like, it looked like a dream, with everything you guys are posting. And it was like, oh yeah, we got to go do that. So thank you for blazing that path.
Oh, for sure, anytime. But obviously we weren't the first one to do it, so we can't take all the credit. We've seen lots of people,
you
come
were the
out
first
here.
ones who did it good.
Yeah, for sure. And like for us too, is like figuring out the logistics and go through the process and doing all that. Once you've done it once, I think your next one you're gonna know everything to do. Like the process, like nothing will be new, so it's gonna be hopefully a lot easier.
I think.
And what are your how was Europe last time? Like, what did you spend most of your time here, and what did you like about it?
We liked everything about it. From the moment we got our van from the shipping depot there in Zeebrugge, Belgium, it was like that was pretty easy. Like that, we thought we were going to be crying and screaming and cussing more than we did, and it really was easy. And we walked away like, wow, why don't more people do this? That was really no big deal. Like, okay, well, the hard part's got to be coming here next.
Right.
And then we finally found the gas station. We figured out the weird street signs and all the stuff that's different. We're like, okay, that wasn't that bad. And
typical culture shock stuff.
Yeah,
it's a little culture shock, but actually we'd been to Europe before, and I had more culture shock on that trip being flying and doing a rental car and riding trains. And we felt like this trip was so much easier because I think you don't have the stress of international travel, because you get in your van, you close the doors, you put up your blinds, you shut the windows, and
you can be
everything's
anywhere.
the same as it is at home in the States. You might hear some weird languages outside, but it really felt the same, and it gave us that chance to feel like we were at home, even though, I mean, really we were at home, right? We were in our same vehicle that we live in the States. But it was all great. I mean, we loved everything. You ask us, we would each probably say a different country was our favorite. But I think we all enjoyed all aspects of it.
What's each of yours favorite, and why is it your favorite?
Yeah, for me, Croatia was my favorite. We sea kayaked around the Isle of Rap, and we were there in October. There was nobody there.
Yeah, nobody. October is the best month, I think, to be here.
The weather was beautiful. Yeah, and just the people, the culture, the scenery, all of it. I loved everything about it.
Croatia's a gem for sure.
And I love being able to go from the ocean and experiencing that environment to up into the mountains. And it was like being in Colorado, and just that diversity. That was definitely hands down my favorite.
I think that's the landscape, the islands, the sea, the Adriatic. I think that's one of the big reasons I think Croatia was let into the EU. Make it easier for other Europeans to get here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Abby.
For me, I'm torn because of kayaking, but for kayaking, I'd say the UK and France. France, just like the culture, the people, the rivers, like everything, the food. And then I also really love Portugal and Croatia as well, because they're amazing.
So you can't choose, Abby, right? It's too hard to choose.
I really liked Norway. It's like a photographer's paradise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we drove all the way up to Nordkapp like you guys did, and that was just so varied and different, and seemed so foreign to us being, from the States, and then getting up there and there's reindeer everywhere, and it was just awesome. And I love ferries. I think of ferries as like you can be in your van on a normal road trip, but then you get this little mini cruise in there where you enjoy the water, and some of those ferry rides were just spectacular. But then I also really love the Dolomites in northern Italy. I can't wait to go back there. But really, this is like a list of two things that were like very high on my list, and all the other things are like just a hair under those. Yeah. So they were all really great. Croatia was great, and Slovenia was amazing, and of course I love all the Alps. So it was. I think it's amazing, and hopefully in the future more people will do like we've done and put their vans on a boat and go to Europe and spend quality time exploring, because it's so easy to do. And I think there's a lot of people who think it's going to be super complicated, and your van's going to have to go through inspections and have all this mechanical stuff done, and it's not the case. It's just like I tell people, it's like going to Canada. You drive across the border and you enjoy yourself, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same when you boat in Belgium. You just take off and have a great time. So it's a wonderful way to go. So I just want to say one thing. Abby has a babysitting job, and she's got to head off to the babysitter. So maybe she could excuse herself and we can carry on.
Yeah, so actually we probably just have the last part left of you guys telling us where everybody can find you, like where you're sharing all of your content, and also like, do you have any new announcements that you'd like to give us an exclusive of?
Well,
no pressure. If it's Mexican food for dinner, that's fine too. Like we're excited about stuff like that.
I think you can find us online in a couple of places. We have our website. We go by the handle of Famagogo, and our website's just www.famagogo.com. And then we're on Instagram. It's just my name, Peter Holcomb. And then Abby is on Instagram as adventurous.miss. And we post a lot to Instagram. That's kind of our main platform. But we also do, Facebook and stuff too. And you can find us in the same names there.
YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah, we've started a YouTube channel. It's in its infancy, but we've been posting a lot of videos from our time in Europe. That's what quarantine has been really good for, is having time to just sit there and edit. So, and that's just Peter Holcomb, Combe. There's an E on the end. And you'll see a lot of our European travels and things that we thought were different and interesting over there. I don't know. As far as announcements, I don't know there's anything really hot right now.
Yeah.
But we're just looking forward to figuring out this new normal. I don't know things are going to go back to exactly like they were, but we're looking forward to figuring out how to work in these new parameters and get back to the traveling that we really want to do and keep exploring.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for chatting with us, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is really fun. I mean, definitely talking to another family, because everybody, like I said at the beginning, people have different perspectives, and hearing your perspective and where you guys came from and your, how you made it work is really cool.
Likewise, you guys have been inspiring to us, and it was great to meet you guys, and I really hope we can go to Morocco together.
Yeah, that would be fun.
We'll find Gene.
And have fun on your babysitting gig.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right, guys.
Okay.
And there you go. That was our conversation with Peter, Kathy, and Abby of Famagogo. They were a really fun family to talk to, and we can't wait to see them again next year when they come back to Europe. Well, we also forgot to mention in our conversation is that Abby is a competitive kayaker. She travels the world competing with other kayakers in rivers and oceans. Go check them out on their blog at famagogo.com. Then I'll put all the links to their Instagram, their YouTube channel, and their blog in the show notes on freelyroaming.com/podcasts or in the YouTube description. Thank you guys again for downloading and watching our Freely Roaming podcast. We'll see you guys in the next one.